was playing.
I played in the 11s,
And that's why you were so trash.
I didn't play against you.
You don't want to play against
I could wear moccasins.
Yeah. Justice for the blind, just something that'll find in the rhyme that'll come from my mind.
Episode 6 is in direct contrast to episode 5. Episode 6 is darker. It essentially kicks off the episode and is saying, you want to be like Mike, right? Well, this is the hard part of being like Michael Jordan, where he can't do fucking anything, which I think we know.
Yeah.
But you don't see it. You know what I mean?
Nope.
You truly don't see it the day to day, which people don't understand. It's like people, they see you be famous and they just assume, oh, he's famous, he's rich, it's good. But this dude doesn't live a normal life ever again. You know what I mean? Essentially. And at this, in the peak of his powers, it's even worse. He literally cannot do anything. And this is credit to MJ. You've never seen him lose his cool. Not that I can think of in the media or in public ever. A dude who could turn it off and turn it on, could walk out of his hotel room and be on. And that's every single day of his life, essentially. Any day that he's not home, it's this way. And it's dark. We see all of the negative things that come to light. But, before we get to the negative things, let's spend time talking about the Jordan rules. So the Jordan rules, we talked about this last week. And I said it was Horace because that's what they were painting. And MJ apparently still believes it's Horace who was leaking all of this. BJ Armstrong.
Will Perdue. Wasn't it Will Perdue?
Who said that Horace did it?
Yeah.
I don't remember if Will Perdue said that, but they all are. I don't think anyone's sure. BJ, who looks like, again, he just came straight out of 1992, is saying that he thinks it's a lot of people.
Yeah.
So the Horace thing was because him and Sam Smith, like Horace was like the closest player to Sam Smith on the team. And like Sam Smith spent a lot of time with Jordan leading up to that without Jordan really knowing what he was going to do. Like he knew he was working on something, but it's the early 90s. Everybody's working on something about Michael, So he actually felt really betrayed by Sam Smith after the book came out. But everybody assumed it was Horace, at least the players did, because of how he was. Sam was always talking to Horace. That was their thing. That was his go-to guy on the team. But Horace put his name to everything apparently. Now the story we talked about last week that I talked to you guys about or 2 weeks ago, whenever it was that it was Phil, and Sam Smith came out and told Jerry Reinsdorf this because he was so concerned about things getting out about the team, and he was really pressing him about like who was your source for all this shitty stuff. And eventually he was like, it was Phil, and he just assumed he would keep that to himself, but he didn't. He told Krause, and it's part of the reason why Krause and Phil's relationship deteriorated when like Krause kind of made. I mean, I don't want to say made. Krause gave Phil Jackson all the chances in the world, and when he finally made out, he did really well. But without Krause, there probably is no Phil Jackson either. But yeah, and then like I said the previous episode, when he got one of his assistant coaches fired because at that time the head coach didn't necessarily have that kind of power; had to come from the general manager. He got Johnny Bach fired because he told Krause that he's the one that gave Sam Smith all the info when it was definitely Phil. And it was kind of crazy that this is known information. And like, since we talked about that, it's come out on a bunch of different other outlets that on the documentary, they don't bring that up at all. And and if Phil can just sit there still, 20, 30 years later and act like it still wasn't him when we know for certain it was him. And I'm sure Sam Smith brought it up, but they just didn't put it in the doc.
Now, beyond that, has Sam Smith said anything? Because people are interviewing my man left and right. Like, has he come out to say anything about it? Because that I'm pretty sure people are questioning him again. Or have you seen anything?
Nah, I don't know.
The thing is, they painted my man Horace Grant like hard, And like the thing is, even like Horace Grant, like the way he said it, I'm like, he might be lying. You know what I mean? He just felt like it just seemed very, like, because Will Perdue, like I can't believe Will Perdue said Horace Grant, like without a doubt, like, and then it just seemed like other people kind of agree with it. So I'm not as well informed, you know, when it comes to the whole film, but of what I'm hearing and kind of what it paints is like there's a lot of griminess with Phil, and like, you know, it's even grimy when, you know, like even when he got the coaching job, you know, just the way Cross is a grimy dude. So like people who benefit off of griminess, I feel like are grimy as well. So, you know, he got a job, and just to see the way he's a snake is insane.
Yeah. I mean, the Kobe book, right? We talked about that. He wrote that book roasting Kobe, calling him basically a piece of shit, and then comes back and coaches him again.
Yeah.
After that.
Yeah. And guess what? Kobe's dead, and look at you now, buddy.
Oh,
look at you now, buddy.
Throwing our
no, because the thing is, that's the thing. Nobody thinks about that type of stuff. But Kobe died an early, you know, and he died before him.
Yeah.
And now he has to live with that.
Yeah.
He said that about, especially when people die, you know, they make you an angel, no matter what you did. And he looks like, I mean, he has to look like the biggest a-hole of them all.
I don't think Phil gives a fuck, though.
Fred is the pastor's son, condemning people to lives of eternal damnation.
I did, and I'm saying, that's the problem is you have, you know, especially in this time where everyone's like thinking about Kobe, and like I imagine if you're the one who like legit wrote a book trashing. Yeah, well, I mean, listen,
at least
and you can't erase it.
At this point, they've made up. You know what I mean? You know.
Yeah. Oh, of course, but still.
To a certain extent, they've made up.
It's not like the stuff he wrote in there wasn't true.
And also, not to jump into Kobe's legacy too much, but it's not like Kobe had a great history. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I wouldn't be surprised if Kobe could kind of see on Phil's level a little bit to understand exactly the way that Phil is. Phil's a piece of shit. You know what I mean? Let's just be clear. The Zen master, he's really, fuck the Zen, he's better at hypnotizing people into thinking that he's a good person. Yeah. Where all we have is history that he really is not necessarily that great of a person.
The book, though, you know, it's sort of the origins of Jordan being this degenerate gambler, right? as well as like not an easy guy to play with, right? Yeah, right. Being like a very like harsh teammate. But the gambling thing, it's still like I don't even know how to put my head around it. So because it's so much crazier than the documentary put out, and like you really have to go really deep into the gambling to see all this stuff. They talked about what was his name, Brian Slim or whatever.
Slim Bowler.
Yeah. Essentially the
too big gambler, essentially a bookie, street dude.
Yeah, a person who indulges in illegal endeavors.
All of the vices. He has every vice. He is gripped by the vice like he's a fucking plier.
A person that's not above breaking the law, right? But that wasn't all of it, right? Right. The reason that he even gets pulled into that investigation is because there was this guy named Eddie Dow, who he also would like go golfing and play cards with, and Eddie Dow is murdered. And when they're doing an investigation, they find 2 uncashed checks for about $50,000 each with Michael Jordan's signature on them. So now it's like, well, did you get this guy killed so he wouldn't cash these $50,000 checks? You know, and then that whole thing comes out where he says, "Oh, it was a loan," which was a lie. And then talked about it being a gambling that he had to pay off to all these people. Yeah. The Equanus guy, the dude who writes that book about the gambling with Michael, he writes that book because him and Michael, they go double or nothing over and over and over again. This one time playing golf, and Michael goes down like $1 million. And he's kind of like, damn, what's that guy? What's the guy's name with the wigs from Goodfellas who keeps badgering Jimmy about his pay?
Oh, what is his fucking name?
Is it Harvey? Or
man, he looks like a Harvey. And they say Harvey sounds like the name that they're cursing out. Harvey, you need to fucking relax. Go ahead. Anyway, go ahead. Go find the name.
It's Sal, right? It's Sal.
There's a Sal and a Harvey in every single one of these movies.
Right. So whatever, but he's basically that guy, right? He's hitting up Jordan all the time. When Jordan's like trying to like maintain
Morris. It's a Morris.
Morris. There it is.
They beat me.
That guy's Morris, right? He keeps fucking with Jordan, and at one point he literally tells him, and he writes this in the book, Equanis does, or whatever the fuck his name is. Jordan tells him, I'm just as well to shoot you than I am to pay you the $1.2 million, right? And then this is all happening around the same time, right? Where the guy gets killed, blah, 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 or Eddie Dow gets killed. So he writes the book, it's like, all right, fuck you, you're not going to pay me. Then I'm going to get my money, do this. And, yeah, I mean, I don't really care that he gambled. But obviously, like, I don't know. It's a lot because I don't even know where I stand on it. And the thing is, I don't even know if we should have opinions on it, period. But I don't know. Do you guys think that gambling was that big of a deal?
I think that this is part of the reason why I think that this is propaganda. Because this is the ugliest part of Jordan. There's a couple things here. Aside from the gambling, let's talk about, aside from the stories you told, let's talk about some of the outlying things that this is going to be stepping on episode 6, I'm sure, or episode 7, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But it's got to be spoken about. We're talking about it. They've painted the picture here. One, this is why there's even ever been a conspiracy that MJ was going to get suspended by the league. Right. Now, I don't completely believe he was going to get suspended. I don't necessarily believe in that conspiracy. However, I would not be surprised to find out that the league was maybe mulling it over like, hey, we're going to do an investigation in this shit. And MJ steps away because along the lines of all of the other shit he's dealing with, he don't want to deal with the press anymore. Maybe he's lack of motivation. His father passes away, which we're going to talk about in a second. And now the league wants to investigate it. Fuck this. I don't want to deal with any of this shit.
Well, they did they exonerated him.
Yeah.
Before he retired.
Yeah. But come on. The conspiracy goes that they exonerate him because he's going to retire. You know what I mean? That's what the conspiracy is. That he says, I'll step away voluntarily and we don't have to go through this bullshit. You know what I mean?
It just doesn't hold up, though.
Conspiracy. I'm not saying the conspiracy theories believe the world is flat. That doesn't hold up either. But Kyrie is out here on a flat world. So there's that conspiracy. Again, I don't believe it. But more importantly is the mystery around his father's death. Right. Which a lot of people believe is attributed to his gambling problem.
Well, now, I don't think that's fair either, though, because if the more you learn about his father was also not. Well, the thing is, I don't know Michael Jordan, right?
Yeah.
But the actions of his father are not the actions of a good person, right? I want to dive into his father more in the next episode when they're going to clearly have to talk about him. And I want to see what they're not going to, but I know they're not going to talk about this shitty stuff, right? They're not going to talk about the accusation of sexual assault to his own daughter. They're not going to talk about him being indicted.
You're stepping on next episode.
Yeah, but the thing is though, they're not going to talk about it in the doc, you know? So it's like his father was pissing off people left and right all by himself, right? Including his wife. So, like, they would sit next to each other, like, in games to show face because women couldn't just leave their husbands. Like, Dolores couldn't just leave, right, and still be looked at as, like, an outstanding, like, role model of a woman.
Especially not down south.
But that's what I mean. In 2020, she would be like, yes, leave her, queen. Correct. But fucking now, no.
Well, right? Also, and then also, even with that it could have been that, but also, well, how does that look on Jordan?
Correct.
Right? Like what? Like there's all these like cards stacked up.
All of that is true. And the thing is, when his father was killed, like this is what the story was told, and we can connect the dots ourselves. He was driving. Him and his wife were kind of separated, right? Dolores was gonna go away to be with MJ in, I think, California for like a month, right? Happy couples don't do that shit, right?
Right.
So while his wife is away, he decides to take a cross-state trip to visit a quote-unquote friend who happens to be a woman, right? He's definitely drinking with this person. They do whatever they do. It's not like he's completely sober. I'm connecting dots here. And then he's driving him back across state, and then he had to pull over and like take a nap. Like you're drunk driving. And it doesn't, if I'm seeing this I forget what car it was, but it was either a Cadillac or just a crazy expensive car pulled over, and me and my homie have already been to jail for stealing. This is like, God wanted me to rob you. You're asleep here in this crazy expensive car. All I gotta do is get you out the car and sell this car for parts. Now, obviously, other shit happened. His father was, probably fighting him up. I don't want to speculate on the details, but like this is all. A lot of these stuff is like vetted in complete ignorance. Right? His father was not a saint. Pissed off plenty of people, and especially those around him. The thing is, like, there's not a lot of people that could afford to pay. And he talked about this, Brian. I think you talked about it, like how much it would cost to pay someone to kill somebody.
Yeah.
Like, is it worth it?
Correct.
Is it worth it? Why wouldn't you just write the book like you wanted, or why wouldn't you just do something else, right? But yeah, it's like it's much more plausible, like exponentially more plausible that his father was robbed and that he got killed in the mix than it is that somebody's like, "Fuck you, you won't pay me money."
There's a new theory going around. I heard this conspiracy theory. I like reading conspiracy theories because I think it's hilarious to see how far people will go. Except for Ben Simmons and Hinkie, that is not a conspiracy. That is what the fuck happened. There's a new conspiracy, which I kind of read at one point years ago, about there being some sort of gang ties, and all the conspiracy theorists came out when they saw Jordan in the red Escalade and
Range Rover.
The red Range Rover, and his plate said Two Trey, which they're saying is a gang in Compton, like the Two Trey Bloods, which everyone loves a conspiracy. You know what I mean? I think everything usually is in the middle. You know what I mean? To what you're saying is probably right about his father. We don't know all of the details. We might know all the details, but there's been so much time now to rehash all of it that people are adding details now. You know what I mean? And saying, well, it could be this. Because if you look at it through this one perspective, if you fly high enough and you can't see the horizon of the world, maybe this shit is actually flat.
Well, the thing is, I would caution you to be careful with the idea that the truth is in the middle. Because some things are completely not true.
Yeah, sometimes it's not true. I like to think things are in the middle because.
Yeah,
well, I mean, we're naturally going to be skeptical. Where I think most people are skeptics of anything that they feel is too good.
Well, I think people also like stories. They just like stories too.
Oh yeah, no. And I remember when the first time I heard of the the conspiracy about him and his pop. I mean, of his. The gambling that being tied into, like the person who told me is probably one of the smartest people I've ever met in my life.
Oh, me? I'm sorry.
No, and he spoke with it that was true, and I'm like, bro, you don't know, like this is just like, it's just that you're so, because I know how he thought. He thinks, he has like kind of like this nothing that you see is real, is like truthful. So when you have that type of skeptical, type of view, you're gonna believe that. And like, that's a completely different time. Like, how are we even prone to that information? Now you could get a lot of that information, but where regular people are some of the worst detectives. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And where, you know, remember that girl who locked herself in the refrigerator when she was like drunk and she
oh yeah.
They were saying that she had gotten like, you know, that she was getting, you know, all types of stuff. Like all these people are, you know, all this stuff went nuts. And then all of a sudden everyone's wrong. Yeah. Everyone's wrong. She was drunk and walked. They have her on camera walking to a refrigerator. Yeah. You know what I mean? And yeah, like it just showed. Like the thing is, you take those type of people, and then they're gonna come up with this type of stuff. So
yeah,
correct.
You know, because the thing is, if they're wrong, it doesn't hurt. Like they don't lose a job.
Well, but a lot of times with conspiracy theories, they're never wrong. Because for every time you disprove them, they have proof of why.
Right.
You know what I mean?
There's more bullshit to be made up.
No, don't you see? She was threatened off camera. Someone's pointing a gun at her and saying, "You walk your ass in that refrigerator." It's like, no, bro, right. that didn't happen.
Yeah.
Can we talk about now the best part of episode 6?
Yeah, I think probably we're going to talk about that. Is that the Knicks?
No.
Oh shit. Okay. Well, before we get to whatever you think the best part of episode 6 is, just 2 things I want to add before we move on. Yeah. The music when Horace is talking about this. Now, Fred, this is going to fall deaf to you because you don't watch one of the greatest shows of all time that ended in a flop, Game of Thrones.
Okay.
But Vic, this will probably ring true to you. The music that they play, I think, is the same music that they play when Cersei blows up King's Landing in season 6 of Game of Thrones.
Oh.
The piano, that piano, John. They played throughout the whole episode pretty much, season, which is, again, the greatest episode of Game of Thrones. Don't fucking at me. You can't even argue with me about it. It's literally the best episode of Game of Thrones ever. So it's the same music, and it felt metaphorical. You know what I mean? Like, it's like overtly metaphorical because it's almost like burning down. This is almost the end, I think. The episode 6 is almost the end where they burn down the last few ties of what you thought was this storybook franchise. And it's like Horace is this last moment here, burning down the rest of what you think is true. Because here's Horace saying, it wasn't me who leaked it. It would be easy to tidy it up by saying, Horace, the one who left, is the one who leaked it. You know what I mean? As opposed to finding out, wait, no. It's actually Phil, even though they never even make that suggestion. They kind of just leave it up in the air. Who could it be? Right. So I found that interesting.
Yeah.
And
the end of Horace and the Bulls after that season.
Yeah, correct. And then the last thing was the gambling. We just talked about the gambling, but specifically about the one point that they made that I actually think was true. I think is a good point. I want to hear you guys weigh in on it. Is I've always believed this, and the reason I believe this is I haven't even made my point yet, but I'm gonna get to it. I've talked about this piece mad times on this podcast. When MJ turned 50, ESPN wrote this piece, kind of talking about MJ. They had interviewed him. They sat with him this day, and it's not pretty. You know what I mean? It's painting the story of a tragic figure who can't go to sleep, who's unable to sleep because of the level of competitiveness that he operates at. He is literally unable to do mundane things. You know what I mean? He's just so driven to have to beat somebody at something that he was having trouble watching basketball at night because all he could do was think about how he could beat these dudes and how he wish he could go back out there. And they mentioned that about the gambling, and I think that is true. I don't think he had a gambling addiction per se. I think he was wildly addicted to winning and to being that competitive. And he sucked at fucking gambling. When you're competitive, right? Like, think about this. When you're competitive, right? If you were easily beating everyone all the time, it is not where's the drive? You still want to beat them. You know what I mean? But when you encounter something that is beating you, your competitive nature really lights the fire. That's when it's like, no, I can't stand for this shit. Right. And this is the thing for MJ. He sucked at. He is mush for sure at gambling. He's fucking trash at it. Yeah. You know what I mean? And he can't understand it, and I think that was the most honest thing I think that we really learned about MJ is that we love to paint how great it is that he's so competitive, but in reality, it's a cross for him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I agree. I think that's why his life outside of playing is not good. Mm-hmm. He's not successful at things that he wants to be good at. Mm-hmm. I mean, like the whole sneaker and Nike thing, they had more. I mean, his play is what made that happen, and then also the shoe creators making dope ass sneakers. But like, did you guys know? I think this came out during his 50th birthday thing. That at one point he owned like a motorcycle racing team.
Yeah.
Yep.
And they were trash.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, and it's just like, and like, why would you even want that? Like, well, in what world would that make sense for you? But it's like he needed to be competitive in some way. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So it's like, and like you said, he sleeps 2-3 hours a night. Mm-hmm. There's all these crazy stories about playing golf all night, sleeping 2 hours, showing up at practice, playing in the game. Yeah, I mean, that's why he's is so unsuccessful in his post-playing career.
Yeah,
he's diseased.
Yeah, no, and the thing is, like, it's weird because, like, you know, I like when I don't feel like when I look at myself and like when I play sports, I'm not a competitive person until something's on the line. In order for you to get the very best out of me, mm-hmm. I need something on the line. Mm-hmm. Right? So that's why like when we play pickup games, like you don't see me act all out of pocket.
Unless you play against me.
Huh? No, that's natural. Right? That's
yeah, because there's something on the line.
That's that God-given.
You can't allow me to be better than you, no matter how true it is. You know what I mean?
No, that's just me natural. That's me natural. I don't even think about that. That's just me. You think that. You make that war up in your head. I just go and do what I gotta do.
You're right.
Like, it's even like when I did play like in high school and those type of things, those official games, like it was like not like knowing that something's on the line, like I would even have a different type of fatigue, you know, like in those games because like my adrenaline, like I love that stuff and I don't get the same feeling when I play like a regular pickup game. Now Jordan, I think, will play that pickup game and need a win, and like that's how competitive he was. So where me, I need something on the line. So it's like you take like the worst attribute of my look at playing a sport, and he has it all, right? So now he takes the way I think to like regular mundane stuff, right? And that he needs something like he can't just play like a game, you know, like a regular, like, you know, thing with, you know, they were playing that thing with the quarters and all that, or the nickels. Like he had to put money on it in order for him, like for it to really, for him to even get any feeling out of it. You can't win without something on the line. And so that's why what I kind of was saying, I think that's why he's gambling. You know what I mean? And it was before he even said it. I'm like, he needs something, because when you saw like the littlest things he was gambling on, you know, it was like, this is he's just that competitive, you know. So you know, the gambling with me and like Aldridge said, he said, look, the guy, he was playing with a lot of money, but he's like, that's nothing to him. It's just that something has to be on the line every time. And you're right. The thing is, he's probably successful in a bunch of other things, but in sports, he hasn't. So, which is difficult because he doesn't have Michael Jordans. Michael Jordan is rare. Is a rare breed. So, you know, he can't. I think that's the reason why a lot of great players can't be coaches.
Yeah. Which, I mean, shit, we've talked about that, Vic, a million times. That's why Vic is such a good coach, because he was such a trash player. You know what I mean? Hey, I had to shoot at somebody. No, but even to that point, I've never beaten Vic one-on-one. I came close a few times. No, I beat you once or twice. we'll say Vic doesn't know because he's beaten me so many times. Again, this is like the conversation about age. You know what I mean? When you live so many years, they all become the same. One thing that I wanted to point out, I'm glad you brought up the quarters thing, because did you peep that not only did he want to gamble, but he stacked the odds against himself. He would say, your 4 tries to beat my 1 try.
Correct.
For $20. So it's not the money. These dudes are they're making more than enough money to say $20 is gonna hurt.
Right.
It's not that he wants to give them a chance to win money. He needs to stack the odds against himself. Like that's how fucking crazy he is.
Yeah, that was the best scene. That was one of the best.
Oh yeah.
That's what I wanted to talk about.
He almost broke his fucking neck. Oh, that's what you want to talk about? Let's talk about it.
Yeah,
My man almost broke his fucking neck doing this shit. You know what I mean? No one can be as cool shrugging. I shrug all the fucking time just because I'm confused.
My man said, I'm going to roll this 20 in my pocket.
Yeah. So listen, his name is John Michael Wozniak, right? He was a police officer in Chicago, and on his off days, he would, and in the evenings when he didn't have to work nights, he was security for Michael.
Oh,
for Michael Jordan. So, yeah, exactly. He also was in the military, too.
Mm.
So right, he beats him, gives him the shrug, and the shrug is so corny because he still got his one hand closed, holding quarters in it.
Yeah.
And he said, "Oh man, you gotta roll your quarter over there." And he said, "I'm about to roll this 20 in my pocket." Yo, that ball was smooth as hell, and I'm watching with a couple of the homies. I'm watching with Yufan Antonio, and I'm like, "Yo, is that dude white?"
Yeah, nobody knows what he is.
Is he black? Well, his name is Wozniak, so he's clearly from some part of Eastern Europe, but like he got a Jerry curl.
Yeah, that was the part that confused me.
Yo, his slang was so on point. Like the quick hitters too, jabbing Michael.
Inner city cop. So who knows?
And I'll tell you, the thing is, he knew Michael Jordan because it was bringing him joy.
So much joy.
And I loved it as a fellow trash talker. That like brought me such joy. Like that when he said roll that 20 in my pocket.
Yes.
And he said,
so good.
He knew that Jordan. It was like a knife in Jordan's chest every time.
So good.
That shrug was so fucking awkward.
Yeah, man.
But it was so perfect. Great. Yeah. It was awkward but great. Perfect. But you know what's funny though, because it does paint the not to get to. I gotta look at everything deep, but it just paints the picture of. That's what she said. But it paints the picture of. I don't know if she said that. Does that make sense?
No,
but
it doesn't.
It paints the picture of how cool MJ is.
Why did she always have to get so deep?
Because she's a. No, I'm joking. Because it paints the picture of how cool MJ was when he did the fucking shrug.
Yeah.
Like, I don't even know how. Like. It's so fucking cool. It's just so fucking cool that like you couldn't script it that way. You know
but also, but also like we like seeing powerful people fall, and like that 20 in his pocket was one for the little man.
Yeah.
And I was just like, my man, I love that part. That was the best part in it.
Yeah, it was.
I guess it was
my favorite. My favorite part was how like he basically crapped on the Jordan 1.
Oh man, yeah.
and he said like how trash that sneaker is to play basketball in. I mean, he does admit, he's like, yo, could you imagine playing basketball in those sneakers? He says it, because what year were they at when
86, 87 when they
no, but it was the 98.
98, when he plays in them.
The what number Jordan is that? At the time.
I suck with the numbers. I don't know.
12?
The 12 maybe?
Yeah.
And he's like, they were right next to each other. He was like, he said, look how sneakers have come, so evolved. And then he said his toes are bleeding.
Yeah.
Like it just shows like how trash those sneakers are to ball in.
I tweeted at that point that every single pair of Jordans I've ever played in are fucking trash. I would never play basketball in Jordans.
Well, you haven't worn that many Jordans playing basketball.
Oh my fucking! You're disrespectful. You know that? You're disrespectful. You played with me like 15 times in your life. You're gonna tell me I didn't wear that many Jordans?
First of all, how many? All right, how many OGs? I'm not talking about Team Jordans. I'm talking about how many OG Jordans have you played in?
I played in the I don't know. I don't suck at numbers. I think the 9s.
He's gonna say the 30s.
No. I played in the 9s.
You got the one with the whole sock.
I played in the 9s. and it wasn't good. My feet were also bleeding. And then I played in the 22s. They're not OGs though. The 22s were trash, so to play in.
Okay, so what? That's not a good.
Yeah.
You just went from
Vic,
a 9
you like
to
playing
22.
in MJ? Oh no. Vic, you like playing in Jays?
No, but
I don't know one person who likes playing.
I played in the 11s,
and that's why you were so trash.
I didn't play against you.
You don't want to play against me.
I could wear moccasins.
I can't think of a good joke right now with moccasins. I'm thinking of one. It's the greeters are turning.
You didn't see that coming.
Anyway, you're trash. So yeah, the best part to me, okay, that was the funniest part. That's fine.
The Knicks.
The Knicks. Let's talk about this real quick because there's like I got goosebumps during this part.
Yeah.
Because MJ, you see MJ at his powers, like gritting his teeth at another team. It feels like a wolf. When he's playing the Pistons, when it shows him playing the Pistons, it's like Simba going to get his throne from Scar, but Scar, is nefarious. You know what I mean? And Simba is this innocent kid, and he's just trying to make his fucking way through the prairie, right? With Timon, a.k.a. Scotty, and Pumbaa, a.k.a. Horace Grant. They're playing Hakuna Matata together, right? And Simba's just trying to win. He's trying to get whatever the fuck they live on. Savannah, whatever the fuck. Listen, I didn't, I don't watch a lot of cartoon movies. All right? And then
Geography.
You see, whatever. And then you see, listen, don't get all teacher on me, okay? Because I know geography. And in fact, I can go find your house right now. You know what I mean? And you can see a geographical ass whooping happening in Philadelphia.
Enjoy.
No, but so back to the Knicks is the first time you see him almost. He's no longer Simba. He's like a full-grown fucking lion.
Yeah.
And he's like going at them. At one point, getting into Xavier McDaniel's face, who I pointed out on Twitter last night. Nobody wanted to smoke with Xavier McDaniel.
Nope.
Xavier McDaniel is the background of most ass whooping stories in NBA lore, aside from Jerry Stackhouse. It's like this guy and Oakley. Yeah. So this guy got his ass whooped. Oh, was it what year? Early 90s. Xavier McDaniel or Charles Oakley? You know what I mean? Oh, early 2000s. That's Jerry Stackhouse. And there's MJ, literally like going at not just it's like an alpha, like when you think of alpha domination, whatever the fuck, it's MJ looking at the Knicks. And it's funny because we did a documentary about was that Winning Time with Miller and the Knicks?
Yeah.
And we talked about this, how the numbers are not really great for Reggie and the Knicks. You know what I mean? Reggie like loses to them pretty often. It's not like a whole thing. The real documentary is MJ and the Knicks, who is fucking constantly crushing their hearts and ripping their fucking heart out.
Amazing.
That's my favorite part. But before I give up the talking point, because I'm actually going to give LeBron some credit here real quick. Again, this is not about LeBron, but a lot of players don't ever reach that level. You know what I mean? And LeBron is not at the gritting his teeth level. LeBron's done something different. Where I don't know if you've peeped this, especially before the season ended. Anytime someone gets into LeBron's face, LeBron treats it like the person doesn't even exist.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's a different level of alpha, like being an alpha dog, of saying like, I'm so fucking high above you, you don't even exist to me. It's the Game of Thrones, lions don't concern themselves with the opinions of sheep. That's what LeBron now does to everybody else. But MJ was more like, I'm going to tear your fucking head off right now. That to me, that was actually my favorite part so far of all 6 episodes.
Yeah. Just the next part?
Yeah, that part. Yeah. The
next yeah. No. The thing is, like, someone who saw that live, man, just like being in that time, man. Yo, the Bulls. I mean, just period, crushed the Knicks, like all the time. Especially with so much of my family being Knicks fans. Yeah. Oh my gosh! But the thing is, like the thing. Here's what makes rivalries. This is what makes the rivalry is that the Knicks best you too, right? Now, ultimately, it gets to the point where they don't. Yeah. When it comes to finals or whatever, but it was like those were all out wars, bro, and it was like the animosity would come, it was like Yankees and Red Sox, right? I don't really, you. That's not alive today. Bulls and Knicks, right? I mean, basically, because like a lot of these teams have been trashed for a good amount of years.
Pathetic franchises.
Yeah, so that kind of kills the rivalry. But like, dude, and this is where, you know, this is where I kind of, you know, when we talk about like, oh well, these guys didn't get rings or whatever, you know, these, you know, like Patrick Ewing and stuff, but these guys went to war and won games against Jordan. Granted, it's not to go to the finals, but like to think about like the war, like sometimes Jordan's hardest games Jordan played was against the Knicks, not in the finals. You know what I mean? So like it's like, yeah, you know, the Knicks couldn't make it, but yo, those were some hard games, man. And I remember being like scared, you know, like watching you know, being a Bulls fan and be like, yo, we might lose this, man, and just hating the Knicks. Man, it was such a good series. I remember just like my legs shaking, like I'm like reliving the you know how intense those games were. They were amazing, bro. Amazing. And like my family from New York, like my one uncle, he's like, dang, bro. Like he said, we hated Jordan. And I couldn't imagine anyone hating Jordan. But of course, because he didn't let them do nothing. Nobody won nothing.
Yeah, I think the difference in obviously Jordan's competitiveness is much different than LeBron.
Yeah,
right? And I don't want to talk about him.
Yeah, for sure.
But it's obviously different. Where like we've already talked about this stories where Michael has to get himself up. Right? And I think by '93 he is by far the best player. But even long before that, he probably believed it, and like it's like, all right, so what do I got to prove to myself tonight because these guys can't handle my shit.
Yeah.
But the difference is, I think, in when you see him like that clip where he finishes over like Ewing and maybe Oakley, and they fall down behind the basket, and he stands over top of them and he's screaming at them. I remember the first time I saw that, I was 13 years old going through this Jordan like deep dive I went through, and like the difference is that those teams were physically beating the shit out of him, where like LeBron's never been fouled in that way, and that's not to take away from anything he's ever done. It's just different.
Yeah.
But like. And this is kind of why like football can become so much different, like on the field than basketball on the court. When the challenge is not just mental, like how am I gonna get to the basket here? But then also like this guy's been fucking fouling the shit out of me, and now I got one over him. Like when it's equally physical as it is mental, the challenge, then different emotions come out.
Yep.
Right. Yeah, Iverson step over, man. That draws.
Yeah, no, that's a good analogy. And the other thing too, like even about that play, back to the point about him like showing his teeth, is it no longer felt like he was just getting beat up. You know what I mean? I know they're painting the picture that the Knicks were beating the shit out of MJ. What it actually feels like when you're watching, especially watching the highlights, is MJ at this point is so powerful and strong and mentally tough that he's actually beating the shit out of the Knicks. You know what I mean? Every time he goes to the hole and they foul him, he's winning that battle. You know what I mean? It's hurting them more than it's hurting him.
Right.
And that's what it felt like.
Yeah. It's getting him up. Yeah. And strategically, they're fouling themselves out. Which like you could not do that today. But that's why that was the fatal flaw of those Knicks teams. Was that they fouled so much, so they had to carry so many big guys, and they never had enough depth at guard. And never had a guy that could create his own shots. A lot of guys who would, Mark Jackson, Doc Rivers, a lot of guys that are passing the ball first.
Well, and, maybe also to go left a little bit, you wonder how exhausting that is to constantly beating the shit out of the other team. Maybe that's why, Patrick used to sweat like no one I've ever seen sweat other than Fred. Fred's the only one who sweat more than Patrick Ewing.
Yeah, but I would say that I think Fred could probably attest to this as well. If there's someone getting beaten, you want to be the person laying the beating than the person taking it.
for sure.
Of course.
Yeah, so like it definitely takes more out of you to absorb the damage than to be putting it on.
I have flagrants from Fred that I'll never live down. Yeah. So
my man act like he Will Chamberlain, like he never fouled out a game.
I never ever fouled out of.
This guy never fouled. It's okay. It's okay.
I'm the cleanest defender.
Yes.
Clean defender.
Some people.
No, I don't need to foul you for you have no offensive talent. You know what I mean? You grab rebounds. You're Moses Malone, kind of. You know what I mean? That's what you are. I'm Hakeem, and you're Moses. Both great in their own way.
Don't worry, you don't hack. You don't foul either.
I don't. I don't foul. I don't foul. We can add this to the. I don't fucking foul. Vic, do I foul?
Not me, but it'd be hard for you to foul me.
You son of a bitch! I knew you were going to do that.
No, because
you know exactly what you did. You know exactly what you just did.
No, because because you're telling it's two different positions. When
verticality, I do verticality. Okay, you don't do verticality. I do verticality.
You lying?
I'm lying. I'm lying.
You're lying.
You're saying I'm a liar.
So I can't even believe what you're saying right now. You lost weight and you lost memory. Your brain lost weight because anyway.
Yeah. Anyway,
because I'm tired of this. You're like you a gentle giant. You like Wang Zhizhi out there, not following nobody, and Lord knows, when I grab that ball, you slap me plenty of times.
I slap you plenty of times.
Yes.
Get the fuck out of here! I slap you plenty of times. You grab rebounds and slap me somehow. I don't even know how you do it. I never seen somebody. Okay. Anyway, so the Knicks, MJ beats the Knicks.
Looking like Manute Ball out there.
Yeah.
As skilled, maybe more. You know what I mean?
The 54-point game is super awesome. But they take them to 7. Right? Yeah. And a lot of people have been talking about this over the past few weeks. Like, that's probably one of the only real scares that any MJ 90s Bulls team has.
Well, you could argue the Pacers, the 98 Pacers, don't they? I mean, that was a tightly contested series, I think.
Yeah. Those, but I mean,
I guess that's the other one.
Only two. Those are the only two where, and a lot of in some cases like that, it's like necessary, right? It's like sharpening the blade.
Yeah.
After you win so many sword fights, you just get used to winning. The blade is dull. You don't realize it until you don't chop somebody up on the first hack.
That's some deep shit right there.
But,
bringing in some fire. I like that. Go ahead.
No, and the thing is that I think that's what gets lost in a lot of when we talk about how great people are by rings. Like, dude, the playoffs are battles and wars, and you're playing against teams that, depending on your division, I mean, because it swings, right? Like, sometimes the West is insane. Sometimes the East is stronger. Like, Kobe even said, he was interviewed saying, he's like, people ask me, if you and Shaq were on the same page, you guys could have won more rings. He's like, there was a team called the Spurs that were very good. Yep. He's like, a lot of times we were playing on the same page. You just couldn't beat the Spurs or whoever else was banging in the West.
The Kings, another great what if team. The Kings,
those were some huge. That era, man. The West was insane, and they had all the big men too. Yep. When big men were important because of Shaq, you had a plan ahead. So we know the Sixers knew. We got old Dikembe Mutombo. And
who we traded Tony Kukoc for. Tony and Theo Ratliff.
Yeah, I remember that. And so those type of things, man, I don't think people give enough thought to those battles and even enjoy it, compared to always talking about the finals. And I get it. Finals is the trophy thing, but the playoffs, man, they give you some of the greatest basketball you're going to see.
Well, and
sometimes better in the finals.
Unlike playoffs and other sports, other than hockey, which doesn't get the respect it deserves. I mean, the NBA playoffs are like a 2.5 month thing. You know what I mean? It starts in April, finishes June. So it's
how long
battle.
Can you actually answer this for me? Because I don't know anything about hockey. How long are hockey playoffs? Because I swear they're 6 months.
About the same, but I think the first round is best of 5. So they follow the old basketball format, I think. So the first round is best of 5, and then every round after that is best of 7. But it's about as long as the NBA, or as long as the NBA playoffs.
It's crazy because like I think like every time I watch, like I don't even watch hockey, but like I'll just hear it in the news. I'm like, yo, we still talking about hockey?
It's still happening.
It's still happening,
the
man.
2019 hockey playoffs are still going on.
I don't understand. I'm like,
the 2018 NHL playoffs have been postponed for the coronavirus.
I bet, do they have like?
2018?
Do they have like that playoff system that, you know, like in leagues that don't have that many teams, like everyone's pretty much in the playoffs?
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, is that what the way they doing it? You know?
I'm just confused by their standings. Not to get too far. I'm just confused by their standings. I'm not.
They're very competitive. Same thing with baseball.
For sure.
The leagues I watch the least are the playoffs that I think top to bottom are the most entertaining.
Yeah. The baseball playoffs have been my favorite playoffs forever because it's the only other – football is this way too because it's a one-game playoff. But it's the only sports where really the regular season doesn't matter. In the NBA, that's not fucking true. Yeah. The 1 seed is going to beat the 8 seed unless it's Dirk in 2006. Not to drive by on my man Dirk real quick, but I had to. The 1 is always going to beat the 8 in the NBA. That's not the case in baseball or hockey or football in some cases. So, so to top this off, beat the Knicks and we see the Suns. Now we talked about. I just released the clip or re-released the clip on YouTube. You can find on the YouTube channel. Please subscribe. Smash that subscribe button. Talking about Charles Barkley and we forgot how we have forgotten, not we, but how the popular culture, whatever, has Twitter especially has forgotten how fucking great Charles Barkley was. He averages 28. I think we talked about this. He averages 28 and 13 that series. And it's important because he says one thing in the documentary. I don't know if it's in the documentary or the interview after. He says, it's the first time that I was on a court and I wasn't the best player.
Yeah, he says after. He hasn't been in the documentary yet.
Oh, he has. Okay, I'm getting it confused. He says it's the first time I was on a court and I wasn't the best player. Yeah. And that's important because Chuck is the MVP that year. And we've talked about it. You know, maybe MJ deserves to win it, but Chuck had a case at the very least to win. Unlike the Derrick Rose MVP, which you know, not to drive by on Derrick Rose. I'm just drive by on whoever gets it. Whoever wants is going to get it today. Derrick Rose didn't deserve that MVP, guys. All right, I'm sorry to say it. He got it because LeBron had turned into the bad guy. He went heel, and they decided to give it to Derrick Rose. LeBron deserved it. Not the Steph Curry ones, though. Steph easily deserved those. I'm sorry, not to go too far off topic. You could argue that Chuck deserved that MVP. He had incredible numbers that year. They're the number 1 seed in the NBA. They won 63 games. They have a lot of talent on that roster, top to bottom. I think, and this goes back to a conversation we had before when I was shitting on Tony Parker. I'm about to shit on again. I'm sorry, Tony. I'm a hater. You're right. I'm a hater. I'm a hater.
You did it, Fred.
I'm a hater.
You did it.
And listen, but you know what? The turnaround time on me learning lessons is a lot shorter. You got to give me that.
Yeah.
Usually it takes me weeks, months. It took me years on Freeway. You know what I mean? Before I gave Freeway any type of love. But here, this took one podcast. That's incredible. That's incredible turnaround. And where people now go to, but see, he had this amount of Hall of Famers on his team, so we're gonna discredit his rings by saying he had this amount of Hall of Famers. You know what I mean? Well, one day you're gonna look back and say, well, when the Heat won a championship, they had like 5 Hall of Famers on that team. They maybe I can't remember. There's somebody on there I'm missing. They're probably going to put Udonis Haslem in the Hall of Fame or some crazy shit like that for no damn reason. But you know, they have Ray, Wade, Bosh, and LeBron without ever having any context of what that actually meant. You know what I mean? It's just this guy had 4 Hall of Famers. Well, Timmy had 3 Hall of Famers. Meanwhile, trash Tony Parker isn't finishing some finals games in some series. You know, in his prime. And so they'll look back at the Suns team and say, well, they only had 1 Hall of Famer. Right? Kevin Johnson's not in the Hall of Fame.
I don't know.
I don't think Kevin Johnson is. But that year, Kevin Johnson was one of the best point guards in the NBA. I think he was averaging like 22 and 8, something like that.
Yeah, Kevin Johnson was
Hell of a player. Thunder Dan Marley was one of the better defenders, but also a very good offensive player. And they had Charles Barkley. Charles Barkley is one of the 20 best players of all time. And people, again, just will discredit whatever they can. And that Suns team, to your point, Vic, to your credit, on Twitter, you were discussing with B-Ball Breakdown where he says that the Blazers. I'm gonna be honest with you. Some shit that he's tweeting. That I'm like, yo, do you really know what the fuck you're talking about? Like, I know you know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
But to say that the Blazers had the best chance to beat that, not one time. I don't have them as the third best team that the Bulls faced. In my opinion, to me, it's the Suns, the Jazz, and then the Blazers and the Sonics are competing. But the Sonics upside, you can almost argue the Sonics upside was better than the Blazers upside of those teams.
Yeah, I think the Sonics might be the worst team.
They might be, but their upside, again, that doesn't mean shit. Their upside doesn't mean shit. It's never realized. But Sean Kemp at Sean Kemp's power, at the height of his power, is a fucking cross between Charles Barkley and a taller power forward. I don't know.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And Gary Payton's upside is like evolutionary Isaiah Thomas almost. But that's their upside that they never reach. That's important to note. So regardless, the Blazers are not, I don't think, the best team that the Bulls face. I don't think they're the second best team that the Bulls face. That Suns team, I think, is the best team they face. I think that team had the best chance, in my opinion. Yeah. It was a great team. Yeah. You know what I mean? Also, fantastic jerseys.
Yeah, a lot of awesome jerseys. But let's save more of the Chuck conversation for next week.
You want to save it for next week? Why next week?
Because next week is when we see it.
Yeah, but Chuck had a big time. He had a big piece of this joint.
No, Dan, we talk about episode 6 plays that finals. No, am I tripping?
No, we don't see the finals yet.
We haven't seen. No, we do. We did see the finals in episode 6. We do. We do. We see them eliminate. We see the Bulls eliminate the Suns.
Yeah.
At the end of episode 6.
What?
Yeah.
The fuck? Am I
crazy? Yeah, because Chuck. They interviewed Chuck, and Chuck is like, take that stuff off your windows. You don't need it no more.
Yeah.
Oh, fuck.
And then MJ talks about how Dan Marley was this great defender and he was gonna roast his ass.
That's crazy. Yeah, no, you're right. Yeah, it's interesting because I love that finals because, like, for one thing, whatever happens between like 1990 and like 93, well, like all of a sudden TV quality is so much better. Mm-hmm. Like if you go back and watch the 93 finals, like it's so much crisper and cleaner than even like the 92 finals was at some parts. But I've watched the 55-point game, I don't know, like 12 times.
Is that the triple overtime game?
No.
Oh, okay.
That was in regulation.
That's right. Okay, yeah.
And I've had it on DVD since I was like 14 years old. Mm-hmm. And we just like put it on before I would go to sleep and just watch it.
2 days ago.
Yeah. And it's like to watch him do that was just incredible because it doesn't look hard. Mm-hmm. Like it never looks really hard for him. And he's being guarded by 4 different guys throughout the game. And it's such a weird start because Chris Dumas has like 10 points in the first quarter. Mm-hmm. You're like, what the fuck is happening right now? And then like doesn't do anything basically for the rest of his career, being in and out of rehab and stuff. But whenever Dan Marley's guarding him, he just blows by him. Mm-hmm. And it was kind of like, did you guys ever see that clip of when Vince Carter is guarding Tracy McGrady on the left corner, and Tracy just blows by him, and while he's like shuffling defensively, Vince Carter turns his head and says, "Help, help, help!" But like as he's sliding, he's still sliding with T-Mac, and even contests the shot while still screaming for help.
Yeah, it knows it's too late.
That's basically what Dan Marley does the whole time. So then they put Richard Dumas on him. Mm-hmm. That ended really quickly.
They put Kevin Johnson on him.
And they put Kevin Johnson on him, and he's like, "All right, well then I'm just gonna
back his ass down, yeah."
and then shoot over him. Mm-hmm. And it's like, but it's like it's 55, and he's doing a lot, and he does everything. The turnaround jumper on at the elbow of the free throw line, the post ups, The drives. He has that incredible drive from the right side of the lane. I mean, right side of the wing. It finishes with a left hand finger roll in front of the rim. He has a couple of dunks, and it's like, but it doesn't even look like it's hard yet.
Yeah, he averages 41, 8, and 6 for the series.
Yeah, and this series is probably the most important to me as a Michael Jordan, as a Bulls fan during that time, because this is really at the age where I'm like watching games, right? So like I'm evolving, at this I'm like collecting all my cards, all my basketball cards, all that stuff, and I watched this thing and my cheeks were tight, like the whole series, but what you're bringing up is how I felt. Like I felt like Michael Jordan was like Game Genie or a cheat code. Like it was, you didn't feel like he missed. Like you don't remember him missing. There'd be games where you're like, oh man, like the confidence I had in Michael Jordan to win was insane. Like it wasn't like there was like I would get nervous, and then like he starts easing you in to being like, yo, I'm gonna win it. I'm gonna win it. And it's amazing you brought that up because like now of course I'm seeing it as a kid. So now that I could kind of break down like stats a little bit better and whatnot, I could kind of see what really happened, if he shot well, whatever. But like it always felt like Michael Jordan had a good game. It always felt like that. It wasn't like where he disappeared. It just always felt like he had a good game. So that's from a kid's point of view. From that point, that's why I became such a fan.
But when I was a kid, I remember seeing Richard Dumas. I remember seeing his last name and thinking it was missing the R. I just thought it was Joe Dumars the whole time. And then now that I'm older, I'm just thinking like, man, he had a rough upbringing. Like people were just calling him dumbass his whole fucking life. That's probably why he had a drug addiction. And it's a goddamn shame. Honestly, we should check up on him. Yeah, listen, Chuck was my favorite player as a kid growing up. You know what I mean? And in fact, my entire when I went to Puerto Rico, I think I went to Puerto Rico in '92. Everyone loved Charles Barkley. You know what I mean? Like a lot of my cousins had Charles Barkley jerseys. Everyone loved Chuck. I love Chuck. And this was his best chance. You know what I mean? To get one. No matter what, people forget the height of his powers being a breathtaking, one of the best players. They just played last night on NBA Together, which is what NBA does on Twitter and whatever. And then the game is on YouTube now. Him scoring 55. Who is he playing? I forgot who he's playing. Scores 55. I mean, he was just dominant
against the Warriors.
Against the Warriors, against Run TMC. In fact, it's Weber's rookie season. And Chuck is just. Chuck is left confused. You know what I mean? Essentially, just like every other player in the 90s who went up against MJ he's left confused. And it's just MJ being the superhero again. 41 a game is the high, right? That's the high for a series.
The highest, it's the highest average in the final series.
Yeah, the highest average in the final series. They go to 3 overtimes in Chicago, and that is probably one of my favorite, if not my favorite, finals games to watch. I've watched that game, I don't know, fucking 6 times in the last year alone. And MJ wins another championship. Now next week, we're gonna see. This leads us into the Olympics, which we talked about already. And is going to lead us to MJ's first retirement, which we're going to talk about next week. I guess. What do we expect the next week? I mean, we're going to see the retirement. We're going to see his father's passing. I guess we're going to see baseball, right? Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
The Olympics was the summer before.
Yeah, the summer before. I'm sorry. You're right. I'm sorry. The Olympics is the Clyde Drexlers after he ends Clyde Drexler's life.
Yeah, we're going to see the majority of the next episode. I'm assuming is going to be his father's passing and the turmoil of it all. And then probably some of the Birmingham Barons. But ESPN already did a doc on that too, though, right? In the bus.
Yeah,
It's a 30
MJ
for
rides
30.
the bus, yeah. Yeah, you know what? To just take a step back and look at this as a general perspective, I think it's important to note that I don't know how to explain this. I know how to explain it, but it's just we view MJ as this saint-like figure. It's like a myth. You know what I mean? And we've talked about this a million times. What makes MJ the great? It's this like impenetrable mythology that surrounds him. But at the same time, we also know that there is a lot of strife in his life during this time, but we never seem to connect these two characters. Because we always talk about how, like, these guys now, we see so much of their lives, and, you know, that's why they can never be MJ. Is just too many chinks in their armor. But watching this documentary is putting in perspective that, man, wait, we saw all the chinks in MJ's armor. We knew about all of it, but we still saw him as impregnable. You know what I mean? It just seemed like none of this ever really phases him. It does, obviously, and because this is the most human we've ever seen MJ ever appear, like ever. So obviously things have affected him, but we saw all the ugly. You know what I mean? We knew the ugly was happening, but credit to just the way MJ carried himself, it just never. It's like Kawhi-like. You know what I compare it to?
Mm-hmm.
You guys know Kawhi's sister got convicted of murder over the summer.
Nope.
Know that.
Exactly. Kawhi's sister broke into a house with somebody else. Looks exactly like Kawhi. Is the ugliest woman I've ever seen in my life. Breaks into a house with somebody, another woman. It's an elderly woman's house, and do they shoot her or they beat her to death? They might beat her to death, and she's in jail.
Oh.
And it's like nothing ever happened. Kawhi is just Kawhi, right? This dead-faced, just ugly laugh-having son of a bitch. You know what I mean? And it's very much like that. You know what I mean? It's like we see all of it. But the way that athletes react to their personal lives, that's what it is. That's the point I want to make. The way athletes react to their personal lives is what influences how we feel about their greatness. You know what I mean? A lot of ways that people who think MJ are the greatest, LeBron can never be the greatest because we knew too much about his personal life, because we knew how it was affecting him. We saw him do all the subtweeting and all that shit, and it makes it hard for us. You know, or like the after the Mavs series, him logging off social media and all these like things. It's just like, well, we don't give a fuck about this. Why are we seeing this? How can this be the GOAT? MJ could be feeling all those same emotions, but we would never see it played out. You know what I mean? And I think that's one of the things about this documentary that's like really bringing the perspective. It's like, man, we knew all the chinks. We knew about his personal life. It just never mattered.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Also, on a side note, Run TMC broke up in '92 because, you know, Mitch Richmond is the M.
I'm sorry. You're right. I fucked that up. I'm here doing Tim Hardaway. I'm here thinking Tim. I'm sorry. You're right. I'm sorry.
Chris Webber is on that team though. So is Sprewell.
Yeah. Webber's on there. Yeah. And so is Mullen. Mullen's on that team. Yeah. Thanks a lot for correcting me, Victor. You could have left that one go unsaid, but you know, always got to be right. You're a son of a bitch. Fred, you got any? Yeah. Fred, you got any final thoughts?
He let you waste your breath, and then just,
I could have went on 5 minutes about Run TMC.
Because you like last time we did, you said it too. Like, yeah, Chris Webber, Chris Mullen, Tim Hardaway, Run TMC. And I'm like, them letters do not match up. I was like, all right.
Timmy, Chris, and Mullen. Timmy, Mullen, and Chris.
Oh, that was awesome.
You got any final thoughts?
Nah, man. I think these were actually my like two favorite episodes because they didn't have like a set theme. Like they were like all over the place, which I kind of appreciated because some of them, I felt like they were kind of like beating, like with the Rodman thing. I felt like that went on a little too long. Yep. Like I got the point. So with this, like it was like, you know, I think these were by far the best the most entertaining out of the two. You know, maybe just because I was like, you know, with the Knicks part, you know, like I think they really build that tension, you know, and the footage that they have is so good. You know, from there, you know, they really build the tension. But like when, you know, talking about the sneakers, you know, it touched so many different bases. You know, so that these were my favorite episodes so far.
How about you, Vicky? Any final thoughts?
No, I'm interested to see how people react who don't know how Jordan behaved in practice. Because these next 2 episodes, we're gonna get that. Like the Steve Kerr an incident is gonna come out in episode 8, I guess. Yeah, in episode 8, probably. So we'll see, like, because he's not easy to play with. And Kobe got a lot of shit for being very similar. So I'm wondering how if he's gonna get a different reaction to like the lay NBA fans.
Yo. Yo. Justice for the blind, just something that'll find in the rhymes that are coming from my mind. Used to come